Talking with Shirlene Ostrov, chair of the Hawaii GOP. Let's bring it back here at home. If you go online, you find a description of the Hawaii GOP quoting one of the weakest GOP affiliates along with the Washington, D.C. GOP. And that's just an observation of the strength of our party here at home. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, I got elected in 2017, and what we did was try to focus on changing that trend, that downward trend line, and also to get more Republicans involved in the party.
How many members in the GOP today in Hawaii, Shirley?
We had about maybe 19,000 when I took over.
And has that changed since you took over in the past few years?
It has. So we have about 22,000 members. We've been in decline for the last 20 some odd years. We are just working on trying to build those numbers back up.
Well, it ain't happening, Shirlene. It really isn't. And here's, I'm going to, just because our time is a little more limited than I thought, we're looking to you as the chair of the Hawaii GOP to be the agency, to be the organization, to be the voice, and to be the entity that will stop the madness of the status quo that we are all suffering from under the dominance of one party. And we're looking toward the GOP to do that. From 2002 to 2018, that's when it's all fallen apart. We have lost seats, incredible number of seats, during that 2002 to 2018 present day period. If we look at perception being a reality, the reality is telling us that the Hawaii GOP is just absolutely lost. I mean, the important thing is culminating with getting people elected. And here's the other part, Shirlene, which is really probably the most distressing. I went through the candidate roles that are seeking political office for this election in 2020. The vast majority are unchallenged.
You know, our party, again, is working on building our numbers.
And again, sure. I went through the 2020 candidate declaration. Shirlene, there's hardly any Republicans. There are so many races, zero of anybody on the ballot. And I would imagine, from what you just said, that is part of the responsibility of the party, is to at least recruit, instill that confidence and motivation.
We are definitely still in the recruitment phase, and there's still many who just haven't declared.
Where do we find the other races? For instance, in the House and the Senate, how many candidates do you now have running in the House?
Well, we currently have more than 10 declared. Okay. There's 51 districts, and then there's other seats that don't have a candidate. So it's all kind of depending on where people are and how they see themselves volunteering to run, because it is expensive, it's time consuming, and it's not for the faint of heart. But I
understand. But
that's
where the party comes in. That's what the party is for. So how much allocation is there through the GOP national, through whoever the source is, and locally, that we're able to help fund? Because we all know the Democrats, they got money coming out of everything because of everywhere and everyone. So how do we combat that? What's the strategy to empower candidates financially, strategically, logistically, et cetera?
So again, the candidate training program was a very, very good way to teach our candidates how to run.
So if we take a look at 2020, what do you share with us, Shirlene, as your level of expectation, goal, etc.?
We're not going to take over the legislature anytime soon. Historically, we haven't ever been in a position to even have a close to an even playing field as the Democrats, and that's been the history of our party since statehood.
Give us your thoughts about why we're in the position where we are today. I went through the candidate roles that are seeking political office for this election in 2020. The vast majority are unchallenged. What's your level of expectation? What can you share with us?
We do notice that our data shows that the west side of Oahu is showing much more conservative voters than anywhere else. And so, people looking at Waianae and Ewa Beach and Mililani, and of course Laie. So we are looking at the normal conservative bastions of voters.
What defines success for the chair of the party and the administrators of the GOP?
Well, I would say success is making sure that our numbers increase. I agree. We are in a position where we're fighting for every delegate, for every vote. We personally want, there's 700 plus delegate positions for the state convention, and we fill 200 of them.
I understand building infrastructure, but you mentioned 2017. We're looking at 2+ years. This isn't just, I don't want this to be, this is all your fault type of conversation, Shirlene, because previous chairs and previous individuals who had positions, that was a failure on their part as well. When we look at number of individuals elected, what is the mission? What really is at the heart of, and not just in Hawaii, the heart of being a Republican? What's the mission?
Finding Republicans and having them identify themselves as Republicans requires a one-on-one conversation, which in a district that has a chairman and people under them, it's a lot easier, right? Because there's 12 people canvassing neighborhoods rather than no one or one person. So that energy is back, and,
all right,
and it's what's going to build the party.
But until you mentioned it to us, I don't think anybody had any idea about that. And let me cite the reason why, because I went on your website, and I've been going on there. The last entry under news dates back to June 15th, 2009. But the general public, those who are seeking an alternative, where do we go? We don't have an active, and this is just me personally, I'm not talking for anybody else. It just doesn't seem to be this active, passionate outreach, visibility, news, information, events. You know what I'm saying? Is that if we're able to get that kind at the district level, that's great. But where is it translating to, and how is that information being disseminated, and how welcoming and open arms can we be if we're not even aware of what's going on? Because I think this is going through the minds of a lot of folks right now as to where are we? And I would just between us, I would really encourage that if there are events and news and information, to have a commentary. I haven't heard anything from the Hawaii GOP in regard to the biggest story of the year with coronavirus, or what the Hawaii GOP and what GOP would do, or what your plans would be, and the economic condition that we're going to be facing, loss of jobs in our number one industry. I mean, and that's just one. I went on the website of the GOP of Hawaii, and I did not see anything. Now, did I miss something there? We're looking for that voice, Shirlene. We're really looking for an alternative voice that is going to counter. So that's my position.
We work in concert with our minority staff there, our minority leader, Gene Ward. The coronavirus, just before we called, and I'm sure he's listening, Honolulu County Chair Brett Kobus and I talked about, our coronavirus responses to the upcoming conventions, and Maui County as well. But you're right, we have a lot of moving parts right now.
Yeah, but I understand that, but we need to know. I have no, and unless you're coming on the program and telling us these things. I saw an email from Gene about how Eastside was going to have a informational briefing or community meeting. That was an email directly from Gene Ward. But if I were to go on the GOP site, I'm not going to learn anything, really, because I've been on it. I'm searching. And so if the bottom line is you got 22,000 plus that are already committed, in order to win elections, You got to double, triple, even more that amount to combat your opponents, the Dems, right? And we need that information so we can share with others. So we can say, if we're at a cocktail party, well, what do you think about the Hawaii GOP? People roll their eyes or whatever. We can come back and say, you know what? As a matter of fact, ... And if you want to learn more, go to the website. They've outlined everything, and that's the position, the alternative position that you can learn from. And that's what, I guess for me, the frustration is being in the communication business. Arm us with that information, Shirlene, please. Whoever's on your staff,
Will do.
your team, that would be really, really
Will do.
beneficial.
Will do, Rick.
Remind everybody about your ascension to the chair of the Hawaii GOP. Why was this a position that you really wanted?
Well, Rick, as you know, and you say it so often, the Hawaii GOP was in such a decline when I moved back after my career in the military, moved back to Hawaii, and I saw that the Hawaii Republican Party was in decline, and so I wanted to throw my effort behind it, and found myself as the chairman and helping the party grow.
And your membership in the GOP, when did that begin, Shirley?
When I moved back in 2015, well, I moved back in late 2014, but in 2015 was when I joined the Republican Party.
So if your entree isn't at 2015, even if we go from there, we have not seen an increase in representation. Shirlene Ostroff is the chair of the Hawaii GOP. How much longer in your term, Cheryl? And at the end of that term, will you seek to be reappointed as chair of the party?
So it's the chairmanship is until 2021, and I can't answer that. The proof is in the how we do in 2020.
I want to thank Shirlene for joining us. I want to thank her for taking the questions I had for her. I want to thank her for listening to me kind of lose my mind a little bit there, because there's a level of frustration that exists with me personally. I'm not talking for anybody else. But my frustration is I go back years, decades, and I see where we've been and I see where we are, and where we are right now, that it's just, the GOP has been relegated to almost irrelevancy. But if you're in a position of authority and you want that job and you seek that job and you want to be a leader and you want to take on everything, then you got to be prepared to deliver. And you've got to have a strategy that is widespread for public knowledge, acceptance, rejection, whatever it might be. And that's where my frustration comes in. I understand that if you empower people with good information, you are going to get good results. But if you are going to internalize, it means nothing. Seriously, how does that manifest itself when the core of what your responsibility is focuses on the commitment of others to utilize their time, talent, and treasure to help with that common goal? What's the common goal? Yeah, I asked about the mission. The mission, we understand that part. The goal should be, in my very ignorant position, is have a plan, share the plan. Have a plan, share the plan. How do you share it? Get out in public. You have got to be a face that people can come up to and talk to and meet and greet, despite this whole virus ridiculousness. You get out there, you've got rallies, you've got signage, you got to do kind of what we do in our business, in promotions. You got to get out there. And there has to be accessibility. We've enhanced our accessibility. We're online if you're not in front. We're on a radio app. We're 2 hours now a day. We're on Facebook Live, to where you can come on in. And obviously, if you got a radio, you have to be able to disseminate. In this particular case, Rick, you're right, Rick, you're wrong. That website should get the lion's share of resource and attention in order to educate the public, and give you a sense of relevancy. You're up against a behemoth of an opponent. You are up against a status quo that has been a part of this, and you've got people that buy. And then you've got Donald Trump, who I support. Yeah, I do. If anybody else does, you got to give them a voice and allow them to know that they're not alone. And all this smack talking about the president, oh, Trump this, and you've got to be able to stimulate within people to not only deal and handle, but reply and respond. And stop being bullied and stop being relegated. What do I tell my daughter all the time? Nobody defines you. No man will define you. No job will define you. People in your own family, we do not define you. You define yourself. If we're teaching that in the homes, why can't we apply that in a very public arena? 8:13 in the morning, News Radio, 830 KHVH. I don't have all that. Listen, what do I know? But I do understand that when you talk about messaging and you're trying to garner support and glean some participation, you've got to have a catalyst. There has to be a presence, and there has to be a steady stream of good information that people can be inspired by and act upon. The concentration of our discussion with the chair of the party was accessibility by us, the general public, as to what the positions and what the statements are made by the party in order to inform us and hopefully attract more people. A few minutes for calls. Let's go to, hey, it's Luther out Kauai side. Luther, how's it?
Good morning, Rick.
Morning.
Scotty and your great audience. I'm glad you just finished with that about her because I felt sorry for her after a while.
Yeah.
And then I just went to the website that I'd gone to a long time ago and never went back for the same reason that I'm calling now. Is their website's a joke. It's not even a website. They should, with the limited funds, they should spend every single thing on multimedia and social media campaigns. And I can guarantee that whoever is doing their, any advertising, anything is ripping them off. I can just tell it from what I'm seeing on their website and from what she was saying. And then the final point I wanted to make, what you see is they can't even get to 800 people or whatever it was to go to a convention. If she's been there all this time and can't even get people to come to a convention, she's utterly failed in what she tries to do. And I, like you, I thank her for her patriotism and effort, but she needs to hand it off to someone else.
Luther, I appreciate you, man, and especially your perspective on the messaging and the technology that needs to be used. It's about the party at large. They are the centerpiece, the focal point of where you disseminate. We need to send people to one location. They're not going to get bogged down going to multiple spaces and places. You know that. There needs to be a clearinghouse. And the GOP website should be that clearinghouse for everything. If not, you're going to have a fractured membership. And you're going to have a fractured message that will not coalesce people together. But you'll have little pockets and seemingly believe that progress is being made when in fact it isn't. 752, Terrence, Honolulu, good morning.
Hey, Rick, real quick, I tell you, that last call makes the whole point. And listening to Ms. Ostrov also makes the point that there's just no one carrying the message, promoting the message of the GOP. For instance, it's not about money because Trump proved that in his election against all the members of the GOP and Hillary, and he spent hardly anything. It's about messaging. It's about somebody out there who's willing to get in the face of the news, get in face. Every time you hear Mazie Hirono out there flapping her lips, somebody should be challenging her. And we had someone, I want to put the name out there, Marissa Kearns. When she was running, I think it was lieutenant governor, she was saying all the right things, but the GOP would not support her because it's all about get along. You go along to get along.
All right. I got to roll, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on board. Let me get caught up. I said I had to.